Hello, everyone. Welcome to the One Conscious Love Network. I'm here with Melinda. Melinda and I met on Facebook because Facebook can be such a beautiful place. It's not always what you hear on TV. Melinda, please introduce yourself and tell everyone how is it that you shed your light in the world?
Oh, Melanie, and look, it is such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to firstly connect with you. I wish it was face to face, but through this process is sufficient. Um, it's interesting. I have made a conscious choice this year that I'm not going to use any labels,
Mhm.
because it's not who I am, and also what I do is a process rather than a specific skill, and
Mhm.
that is I am a guide and I walk beside individuals who are people who have done a reasonable amount of work on themselves, but they're in a place where they recognize and have known most of their life that they just don't fit and that they are different. And that difference often is attached to an area where they have either been labeled and judged, or they've taken on board a level of identity around their too much in some area. So they
Mhm.
tend to be people who are truth driven. Their integrity's been strong. They consider people, and they're able to see what the right thing is to do. So the traditional models and ways frustrate them. And
Mhm.
traditional leadership, it can feel almost like suffocating. And so there's been that conflict in their life of following that connection to their soul that has called them to speak the truth and live from truth. And yet, as we know, the human world, as we have been raised in, even though it is evolving now, has not supported that truth to be expressed. So, what I do is I journey beside them and supporting them to cross over a threshold from where they know they've done a lot of work, they've got the tools, but they know there's something deeper. So for me, I don't so much use tools, which is why I don't have labels, but I guide them in a process of facilitating their process. So what surfaces in them, we work with. But I also have a map of the human journey and the soul journey, and I support them in their return back to their soul and living more from their truth, and that not just trusting, but being trust. And so I have a program called I Make a Difference, which is now in January, the second iteration of it's about to be launched, because it was 25 years since I created it this year.
Wow.
So it's been a huge journey, not just personally, but professionally. So in simple terms, I guide people back to their soul so
Oh,
that they
that's so
live from
beautiful.
it and create their own path and be the leaders that humanity definitely needs these days.
That's so beautiful, Melinda. How did you get started in that?
Um, it's interesting. At 18, I just knew my journey was to find me. And that's been my life's
Mhm.
purpose. When people talk about their purpose, it tends to focus on all external things. I was very clear that I am here to find who I truly am. So at 18, I just knew, and now I recognize that it's like a soul remembering that that's why I was here. And
Mhm.
um, I knew I was a product of my environment, and that this tough chick that I've become, this fiercely independent, rescuing, protective, extremely angry, and yet so lonely and hurt individual internally, was not me. It was a part of my experience and process, but it wasn't the true me. So it sort of came in various stages which we all experience. Um, but there were a number of steps that happened between there and when the actual crack happened internally, where the full on focus and commitment to discovering me that journey really took flight, and that was when I was 24. So I had a mother who exposed me to ashrams and astrology at 16, which, dare I
Oh,
say, it was the 80s. And so that was sort of like deemed to be really out there and weird and wacky in those days.
yeah.
And but it also I didn't really connect with the ashram way, but spirituality was an area that I had a calling and I could just feel it. And that was, I was one of those people who just didn't fit. So all of my peers at that point, you just couldn't have those conversations with anyone because they just couldn't cope with trying to comprehend what that meant, let alone what it felt
Mm,
like internally. But at 24, I I hadn't seen my dad for 6 years. In fact, I've only saw him once from 18, when I was 18 years old. And I got a letter from him and it's like took the top off everything. And I all of the suppressed venom and hatred and hurt started surfacing in an uncontrollable way because it was meant to. And so I sought therapy because I just couldn't manage it. I lasted 3 months and I started recognizing I was actually ending up giving feedback to the therapist, which was interesting, which highlighted how much I actually already knew but didn't
mm,
know I knew. What I struggled with was the concepts and the tools that it was being shared with me. They just they didn't resonate. And also, I'm quite kinesthetic, so I have to feel it through the body. And I just wasn't able to grasp what she was trying to get me to do, which was essentially break myself down into different personalities. So I decided to quit. And I just knew again, which really highlights how strong my knowing has been through my life, that I had the answers inside of me. So I committed to finding those and finding the tools that I knew I had to help me heal and unravel. So I had that process happening as well as I'd entered into the world of, I entered into, it wasn't a conscious process, and it was an unfolding into the world of training. And so I was contracting to a company where I was delivering leadership communication skills. And I spent 2 years with them and I got incredibly frustrated because
mm,
it's just that, I mean, people say there's not a lot of new stuff out there, and there isn't. I mean, a lot of what we know, we remember, or it's innate to us, and it's
right.
just us tapping into that, and it's how it's delivered. But this was the same old rehash stuff. And what I noticed was when I put the content aside and the delivery and actually spent time having real conversations with people, that's when the real shifts happen. And it was, oh my gosh, so if I'm finding the answers inside of me, I know they've got the answers for them. So let's develop a new approach, which is to facilitate, which in those days was a different approach because training was more the traditional one. So I developed my own way of facilitating. And in 2000, the personal development and the facilitation came together when I designed the I Make a Difference program, which in its original iteration was the journey of the human back to the soul. So now
Mm.
the second iteration is the soul journey as well as the human and the reunification of the two. And I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it's fascinating and beautiful. I love it. I love it. And you touched a little bit on it, but I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. We're feeling a shift into the world, like there's a big awakening, a movement happening. And you touched on the fact that you started this 25 years ago when people were like, what is this? So how do you feel this shift and awakening has kind of changed things for you?
um, it's certainly easier to talk about it. It was 20 years that were a hard walk to walk because you're different and so many people were threatened by it because it was the unknown. It was, the whole spiritual personal development area is quite an intangible thing. And these people who were still in their protective modes wanted, you know, something that they could feel safe and grab hold of. And so when we were coming in delivering programs that were shifting, like we did a 100-person pre-employment program, and
Mm.
87 people graduated and got jobs. And
Wow.
the for them to accept that people were shifting in their self-worth and their belief and being able to manage their emotions and start voicing their truth, it threatened the old system and what was going on. So I had people undermining my business, judging, setting up my trainers to try and eliminate us because we were being so
Mm.
successful. So these days, I held responsibility for. I worked with cohorts from inmates, pedophiles, murderers, through to CEOs, to
Mm.
long-term unemployed, to disengaged youth, the whole gambit. And that's because also the value of training in those days,
Mm.
um, people just were delivering to make money. And I know there's still an element of that happening now. And so their value and their care of people and the outcomes was diluted significantly. And
Mhm.
there was a group of First Nation Australians. So in those days we called them Aboriginal Australians, who said to me, we're the most highly trained unemployed people, which was
Mhm.
indicative of the training area. And bringing personal development into pre-employment is the most sensible thing to do, but was so out of the box. So now you can have these conversations and it's not weird and it's not strained and people are open, but there's a different level of shutdownness as well and protectiveness that's operating. So instead of people being scared of the spiritual personal development area, there's now multiple levels of what I'm seeing where there's like a spiritual elitism. So as much as I've always been one that has said we are our own guru.
Yeah.
And anyone that put me in a guru position, I was like, whoa, get me straight off that pedestal. Thank you very much. You will not put me there. I am walking beside you. I don't walk above you, ahead of you, or behind you. I'm beside you. But I'm seeing people who are placing themselves in that position. I'm also being a process expert. So I've spent so much time taking the human and the soul processes and dissecting them so that it's a simple process and journey, and it's what we naturally go through. And I'm seeing distortion of human and soul and people's communication. I'll give you an example. A lady I was working with who said, connect with your truth and manifest. Well, truth doesn't need to manifest. Truth is a soul-based thing. The soul knows. It doesn't need to manifest anything because it knows what's going to unfold. The human needs to manifest, and manifestation, yes, is important as part of the human journey because it's understanding the energetics and what you're understanding more about you. And the human, as we all know, the soul's here to have a human experience. So
Mm.
embracing both is important.
Mhm.
When you say access your truth and manifest, you're going soul in human. And that's not where we're at in how systems work. Human then soul, so manifest so that you can then connect to your truth is the process we go through. So there's a lot of people who are at a place where, yes, they know a lot, but they've heard it, they've read it, they've learnt it, but they haven't lived it and fully understood the process. And that's not making them wrong because they're there for the people who need what they're providing, or otherwise they wouldn't be in
Mhm.
business. But we have a responsibility to really honor our internal processes at a very deep and spiritual level so that we don't distort ourselves energetically and don't distort that. And that even with visualizations, when we delivered the program face to face, because all of that
Mm.
was what I did previously, there was always two of us in the room because people don't realize that with a visualization, when people do go deep, there is energetically a part of them that can leave the body. And
Mhm.
we have a responsibility in that guidance to actually bring them back into and be grounded into that human body again. We had a person we spent nearly half an hour working on to be able to bring them back in.
Mm.
And so that's why I know for me, these days, the commercialism of spirituality and personal development means there isn't necessarily the care and the depth that it actually the industry deserves, but also individuals deserve. So yeah, it has brought up a few conflicting feelings, and I've been like, well, hold on, this is how it's meant to be,
Mhm.
and otherwise it would be different. And if someone is open to exploring something, it's not for me to tell them there's a difference, but ask questions. And if they ask me questions, then yes, I will respond. But I can be a shining light of what else there is and what that difference can be. That was a very long answer to your question. I'm sorry,
Oh,
but I
so
answered
beautiful. I'm enjoying every second. Don't
it.
worry. A question I always ask everyone is, what is one conscious love to you?
Absolute acceptance of everything and about everyone. Because
Such
to
a
me,
huge challenge, right?
yeah, but it's not as well. It's part of what we're here to understand, explore, experience. And,
Mm.
one of the things that I know I experience a lot is with the people I work with is shame is the most impacting area for people to share. And I get a lot of the people I walk beside, who say to me, "You're the person I'm most scared of sharing it with." And I always say it's ridiculous because you're the person that accepts it the most. But because in sharing it with me, they're sharing it with their own truth and facing their truth. And I know I have never flinched, even when I've sat with people who have done some things that I don't condone, but I understand how they got to where they are and why it happened. And I have done things myself in my life that were shameful. And I know that more I've accepted not just the human process and the human things I've experienced and the human aspects of me and the soul side, accepting others is really quite simple because they are who they are, and there's beauty, and there's beauty even in the things that they've done and that they've experienced, that are insights that we can receive as a gift for our learnings, our discoveries, and even checking in with ourselves. And so for me, love has always been, and especially unconditional love, it's acceptance, and it's as simple as that.
That's so beautiful. I love that. I love that. And well, anything you want to share with everyone watching, we're going to put all your links in the comments so people can connect with you.
Am I allowed to ask you a question?
Of course.
Yeah. What is it you love about what you do?
Oh, this is my love child. This group is my love child. And I started it in March and I was part of a community in Playa del Carmen, which is magical place in Mexico. And I was leaving, I was coming home to Canada, and the community was called Conscious Co-working. And it was full of beautiful people. Everybody that I met, it just resonated so much with them. I wanted to kind of continue that feeling, and this community has enabled me to do that. But what I enjoy the most is that every time I have a conversation with someone, I learn a little bit more about how to really deeply be a better human. And I really appreciate that.
Mm, that is beautiful, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much for being here. As I indicated, we'll put all your links in the comments so people can reach out to you, learn from your program. Is beautiful, the work that you've done and pioneering the change as well. Many years ago, I can imagine the challenges that you were faced with. And I'm so grateful that your perseverance and your continuation is now being shared so broadly in the world. It's so beautiful.
Oh, Melanie, thank you. And you are so right in terms of I look at the people before me, like even Shirley MacLaine, who wrote her series of books that someone who was so well known, who helped maybe not everybody, but she even helped me, make spirituality even more acceptable and something that could be talked about. And so many people have walked that or created that pathway for all of us. And your honoring of that is something I'm going to take away from here and spend some time consciously pondering on that, because I know my mum, thank goodness for her and what she was able to provide for me in exposure. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and even to your mother, who I'm sure has joined us one way or another on this call. Thank you so much, and I hope that we'll see you very soon again on the One Conscious Love Network. Thanks, Melinda. Thanks, everybody, for watching.